Everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. We are beginning a 5-part series on 5 things that we know about the Raiders. Well, it's a 5-part series. We're talking about things that we know about the Raiders post offseason workouts. The next big thing on the Raiders' agenda is the beginning of training camp. And so, what do we know about this team? There are some things that we know that are extremely positive. We're going to start with those. There are some things that are extremely, I don't know that I don't think extremely negative is fair, but there are some areas of concerns. We will absolutely address those. But we're going to start with the positives. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is this, and I've talked about it with you in the past, that there is a differentiation between hope and faith. There is a difference, and it's a tangible difference. And I have been around this team when there was a lot of hope. When Josh McDaniels came, there was a lot of hope that this team was going to be pretty good. When when that was when Josh McDaniels got here. Excuse me. There was hope last year, but we know that one step beyond hope is faith. And without, and faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things we don't see. Again, let me give you the definition of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things we don't see. Now, that is defined by the writer of the book of Hebrews. And so, since we know that's what faith is, and it's down the road past hope, let's get into this because I think it's a very important. It's a very important. Some will say it's parsing words, and it's totally not. I've done this for years. This is my profession. I can tell you there's hope, but then there's faith. So, for example, when you draft a rookie, you have faith that they can perform at the National Football League level. But when you sign a veteran who has already done it, you then have faith. You have something substantive that you hope for. You hope to get a running back or a player, a linebacker that you felt like can play in this league. That's what your hope is. You go draft a rookie. Hey, we got hope this guy's going to be pretty good. Faith is, oh, yeah, there is tangible proof of an ability to do this because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So let me give you an example. When Josh McDaniels got here, he had failed as a head coach prior in Denver. That was no secret. There were a lot of people who talked, and I shared this with you, that said he was a different guy. He had learned from Indianapolis. And guess what? They were correct. There was a lot of things he did different in Vegas that he did not do in Denver, and good things. They were good things. Um, when he went to Indianapolis, when he went to Denver, it was as if he tried to just be Bill Belichick. He didn't let himself be Josh McDaniels. I think that was a big mistake. I've told you before, I really like Josh. I think and the players did too. He's a warm, engaging person. He's a great father, terrific husband. He is an offensive genius. I stand by that. And that's reputation around the league. But he's not a good head coach. But based upon what people had heard, they were hopeful he could be. And when he got here, I shared with you, there's a lot of people were really hopeful. Players were really hopeful. And that hope never materialized to faith. Okay. I'll give you another one. Antonio Pierce. came in, held the team together with scotch tape and Elmer's glue, and got the team somehow, some way off a high center. They won some games. Wasn't like they went to the playoffs or snuck into the playoffs. They did some things, but he had never put together a staff. He had never run a training camp. There was a lot of things he had not done. There was a lot of hope that was going to translate. You saw that in players wanting him to get the job, et cetera, et cetera. But it never went, ever got past hope. Never got there. Just didn't happen. Okay. And so throughout my time here, we've seen hope. But Pete Carroll comes in, and his first, I mean, before he got the job, he was already calling people. Hey, I need to tell you, I mentioned to you during the process that I'd heard I was the first one to break the story. He was going to bring his sons because he was already talking to other people about coming to his job, and I had been told this. That's not a bad thing. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He did nothing nefarious. I'm not pretending that, or I'm not even implying that. And there was a lot of excitement about what he was going to do. And some had complete faith, some were full of hope. I read a text to you a couple in the last 10 days or so from a player that wondered, when he was coming in, is it hype, whatever? And they said to me, Hondo, he's the most authentic human being I've ever been around with, excuse me. And then he gets in, he starts talking to players, assembling a staff. He starts talking to players, telling them what his expectations are. And I'm not going to get into a lot of details right now because I want to check and make sure that I have permission to tell you. But he began to do things that the people that already had faith because they saw his resume, they knew he could do it, were strengthened. And the people that were hopeful, thinking, well, he's been away from the game, whatever, whatever. How did this team, how are they all bought in? Because they know his resume and every single thing. And there are some things that he's told them that he was able to do in the preseason that have already demonstrated it. So, literally, where the Raiders had been a team stuck on hope, I'm going to go back and explain this to you. Years ago in college, we learned that, when people say we fell out of love, well, love is a choice. But what happens is you may remember, seems like yesterday when I fell in love with Shannon, there is the dopamine in your brain, which is a chemical substance, and another one, I don't remember the name of it, forgive me, that get released when you first meet that person and you begin the process of falling in love. Over time, though, those chemicals, because you're around the person, used to them, begin to wane. And that's where immature people say, oh, we fell out of love. No, you didn't fall out of love. Love is a decision. Stay with me, please. And so what happens is then that's when you have to work on your relationship. And so what happens is a lot of people mistake the high of the chemicals being released when you first find a person you think is super special. Now, I remember this in college studying psychology. That wasn't my major, but studying it, when the professor says this is why sometimes you see people who jump from relationship to relationship to relationship. They're searching for that high. They're addicted to that high. It's almost like a drug addict who needs another high because they're not mature enough to understand after those emotions. Now you work on it. It's a relationship. Here's where I'm going with this. The Raiders have had a lot of high experiences, the dopamine and chemicals of excitement with new coaches, and it's been pretty much every year since I've been here. Now in comes a coach with a resume, and a resume with a proven track record, and a resume of what he told them he was going to do when he got the job and when he's done what he's done heretofore. That is a monster thing. It is enormous. And so now you have a team that is bought in. So let me address a couple of issues. He's told this team what he's going to do, and he's done it. He has listened to captains, not always agreed with captains, but when he doesn't blow them off like they're stupid. He doesn't throw them away. He explains why he's going to do it different, and he doesn't owe them that. But he's treating them like the adults in the room that they are, asking them to set the standard of leadership. And when he doesn't listen, he offers great reasons why he's not going to change, and they buy in. Now, let's go back because some people may say, well, what about Gruden? Did they not have faith in Gruden? Well, by the time they moved to Vegas, there was some hope and a little bit of faith for that 20 COVID year. But as the year went on and the beginning of the next, it was okay. We know he won a Super Bowl before, but there were questions about where the franchise was going. We'll leave it there. Everybody loved John. Well, most of the people. It was not a slam on John. It was just their inability by that second year in Vegas to turn the corner. There was real questions about whether it would work. In the first year in Vegas, there were still questions, but there was so much the dopamine from the move to Vegas that it spurred it a little bit. But this is the first time in the 6 years that I've covered this team. It's not, man, I think we can be pretty good if, and if. It's, hey, we're going to be better. And I said to a player after mandatory minicamp, I just texted him and I just put thoughts with a question mark. And they texted me first about something, and I said, okay. And I said, hey, I got something for you. And they go, what? So I just texted thoughts. And they said to me, we're already better. And then, without me asking, proceeded to talk about why they're better, why they already feel like they're better. There's nobody running around talking smack on the Chiefs. There's no one running around talking smack on the Chargers other than the Raiders when they released their schedule. And I thought that was hilarious and all in good fun. I have no problem with it. I thought it was hilarious. But other than the organization, it's not coming from coaches and staff. And so now it is, we're going to be better. We're competing. And every drill, every time. So I'm not going to name the player, but I was coaching another team. I was covering another team one time, and they had a star player, not to the level of a Max Crosby, but a legitimate star player. And that player, I remember one particular practice, 2 or 3 times, somebody jumped in front of him and stole a rep. And I remember calling a very famous NFL figure and telling him, hey, this star player 2 or 3 times had another player jump in front and take a rep. That to me seems to be a warning flag. And they said, oh, that's a huge one. That's somebody that thinks they were born on think they hit a triple when they were born on third base. So that's a warning sign. There's none of that. I mean, star players everywhere on this team, and I'm not implying that there are stars at every position, but the star players on this team jumping up, taking extra reps, doing the things they should do, leading, watching older players lead. I mean, I watched Devin White and Landon Robertson helping young players, moving young players. I watched Gino talking to young defenders, and it's not this side or that side. I have shared with you before, one of the things that concerned me on this team was because of how good the defense was, even down 9 starters last year. If you look at it through that lens, they were very good. There's a danger of teams beginning to fracture when one side is significantly better than the other. Like, man, if this other side was any good. I've shared this story before. I'll tell you again. I remember covering a team one time where the offensive coordinator was calling me, telling me how terrible the defensive coordinator was. And the defensive coordinator was calling me, telling me how bad the offensive coordinator was. And then the head coach was calling me, telling me how much both of them sucked. And you can get that. Teams fracture like that. They fracture. And so what happens is that is a danger when your team just doesn't buy into compete. Now, Nick Saban, and a lot of people don't like Nick. I don't understand that, but to each their own. It's probably because he beat your team so much. And they'll call him a crotchety curmudgeon. And that may be even a little true, although if you spent time with him and Terry, you would know it's not. But I can see why people feel that way. He got tired of the roller coaster. So he was at Michigan State and his teams would go 6-5. That was back when they played 11 games, maybe 7-4. Gets one big year, parlays it to LSU. And it even happened a little bit at LSU before he won the national title. But his teams would go up and down, up and down. They rode the emotion, played up or down to their competition. They would go to Columbus, beat the number one team in the country in Ohio State, come back the next week and lose to a team that you're like, what? And so what Nick did is he spent a lot of time. He brought in a sports psychologist to help the team, and he began to build his process post Michigan State, pre LSU national title. And he began to build, how do you build a champion? Well, it's with little steps. It's not letting yourself look down the road. Many of you know this story and you can find it on YouTube, but Nick Saban's team is destroying another team like by 35 or 40 points in the final minutes of a game. And he didn't like the way his defense didn't adjust, and he calls a timeout and goes ballistic. People are like, what a jerk. No, it wasn't being a jerk. He understood that at that year, that time, Alabama had the best players and the best team in college football. And if they played down to the situation, they were going to lose when they get to the playoffs and play better teams. And so he constantly taught Alabama, you are competing against yourself. It's what he taught them. And it's what he accomplished so much. So in rolls Pete Carroll, who has a process. It starts with, and I'm using his verbiage because I'm speaking in his voice, we compete at everything, all the time, everywhere. Compete, compete, compete. He began to develop, listen, we need to do this as a team. He began, and again, I don't have permission to share all this, so I'm not going to give into some specifics here, but he began to preach the team, the team, the team, like Bo Schembechler did at Michigan, and did it very well, by the way. And what did he do? He began to earn the trust. This is going to be a team. Pete Carroll's the boss. Nobody questions it. But they now know they have a voice and he wants to hear. You walk up to him and you say, hey, coach, can I have 30 seconds to tell you how I think we can do this better? Yeah. He may look at you, that's a great idea, but I've tried it before, but we're going to stick with what I've done because I've tried your idea. Okay. He understands he had to come in and win the locker room. I'm going to say this, and I know there's a lot of turnover. You've got 35, 40% of the roster is going to be new. And there is a term for people that have been in an abusive relationship. It's called battered spouse syndrome. And he's got a lot of players that have had a lot of things said to them. And and have been deflated a lot. And he knew, I got to come in and earn it. They're not going to give it to me because I'm Pete Carroll. And he has come in and has never one played the "Do you know who I am" card. One player told me, he walked up to me and said, "I'm going to make a player's name up. Uh, Hi," and it was a player, so I'm only using this. "Hi, Dexter Carpenter. I'm Pete Carroll, your new coach. Nice to meet you." And the player's like, told me this. He goes, "Does he think I don't know who Pete Carroll is?" But he knew my name. Player was shocked, and it wasn't like he was looking at a roster. He was walking through the building, and he's just genuine and authentic. And so he has been able to get this team to buy in, to grasp a hold. And when you talk to them today, thoughts? Yeah, we got better. Yeah, we competed. Do you know, and this is the first post-man mandatory minicamp, when I've talked to players off the record, it wasn't, man, I think we could win 10 games. I think we can get to the playoffs. Man, I think I'm really hoping. Man, if this happens or this happens, I think. None of that. Not one, and I've talked to several and important players. Not one. You know what I do here? We're better. We're better. Training camp. We got to do this, this, and everybody's talking about training camp. Or they're talking about, man, over these 6 weeks before training camp, I've got to improve this, this, and this. I can't relax. I got this, this, and this. And then talk about training camp. Now, this blew my mind. In fact, I was with Shannon today and had a couple of interactions, and I'm like, nobody's even thinking about the season. It is all about right now. What am I doing right now to get better? And one of the players who's competing with another player for playing time said, I guarantee you XYZ player is working today. That's why I'm working. It's a difference. It's a team now with faith that they're getting better. I remember, other than my first, well, no, one person, two people my first year, but two people my first year. But after my first year, several players, coaches, and people in the organization, when I said, mandatory mini camp's over, what do you think for this team? And they give me what they think that, the guess and the record's going to be. Not one. It's all about the next step. It's all about understanding the process. If you're looking to the end of the season in June, you're allowing yourself to skip the process. Now, I want to go back to something my father taught, and tomorrow's Father's Day. So I want to just quickly say to all of you, God richly bless our dads. If you didn't have a dad, or maybe you had a bad dad, don't let bitterness set in. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget, but don't let bitterness set in. And you determine you're going to be a great dad. But happy Father's Day to all of you. God bless you richly. But I'll never forget this with my dad. We were pregnant for my first child, my beautiful baby girl. And her name is Sandra. And love her dearly. And I said to my dad, Dad, do you have any advice? Now, I've told you before, I mentioned to him when I first found out we were pregnant, I was scared because I didn't know how to be a dad. I had a great dad, but I didn't know how to be a dad. And he goes, You didn't come with an owner's manual. I had to learn. And I'll never forget him telling me the hardest part about being a dad is that the longer you live, the more you regret because you're going to make so many mistakes as a father. I remember him one time telling me, he goes, Man, son, you keep talking about how great of a dad I was. I don't know that that's true. I said, Are you kidding me? All of my father's 6 children revered him. He goes, Son, you're not going to understand until you're dad, but every day you live, you look back at things and you live in regret. So several months later, my daughter's born, and I asked my dad, "Do you have any advice?" And he said this to me. He said, "So many parents are like, I just can't wait till the baby sleeps through the night. I just can't wait till the baby's potty trained. I just can't wait till the baby gets to school. I just can't wait." Now, back then, school was a half day. It's not that way anymore. But now I just can't wait till they go to school full time. Then I just can't wait till they get to middle school. Then I just can't wait till they drive so I don't have to drive them all over the place. Now I just can't wait till they graduate. And then pretty soon they have their lives. And he goes, "Son, they've wished away their children's life, always looking down the road." And he said, "Just purpose in your heart to enjoy every stage, every day." And he goes, "I died when my dad, talking about my grandfather, Ernest, this is where we get Dexter Ernest Wayne. My dad said, my father died when I was young. I remember as a little boy, I didn't cherish every moment because I just thought he'd be there forever." He said, "You never know with life. So cherish every moment. Don't look past it." Here's where I'm going with all this and how it applies to your Raiders. This is a team because they've lived in hope and not faith. It's always been hope. I hope we can get to the end. I hope we can do this. This team's in faith mode. Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. They are convinced they're better. But at no time that I've covered them have they been a team more aware of their warts, and they're not hoping. They're addressing what they have to do to work on that stuff, and they're not even looking to training camp. It's what am I doing today in this final 6 weeks to be ready? Now, again, I mentioned some are saying, "I gotta do this to be ready for training camp," so they're talking about the start of it, but they're talking about the process leading up. Nobody's talking about the season. They are understanding, I cannot win a Super Bowl in June, but I can lose one. I can't go earn a new contract in June, but I can cost myself one. That is point number one of what's different about the Raiders. Now, that and $12 may get you a cup of coffee at the uh, um, at the coffee shop, but it's different. And we're talking about what do we know today that's different? This is a team walking around with a faith mentality of we know our weaknesses. We know where we struggle. We're committed to fix it. We're going to fix it. We're better. Nobody's living in the hope world anymore. Welcome to the big world. They're now approaching this like champions. They're now approaching this like they should. Don't cheat the process. Stay true to the process. Live the process. Stay focused on the process. That's what this is all about with them now. That's entirely different. It's entirely different. Every single player on this roster is looking in the mirror every day. What do I have to do to be better and ready? This isn't a place of hope anymore. It's a place of faith. Now we're going to find out how much better. I'm not a fan, but I'm already convinced they're better. And for me, that is the biggest change I have seen on this Raiders ball club. Happy Father's Day to all of you. God richly bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.